Hey, what's up guys? This is Josh Gilbert from Chattanooga, Tennessee, a real-life working musician. I just wanted to talk about some stuff and maybe encourage you and give a little bit of wisdom or something like that to a certain extent. Just a little bit of experience from the road and the journey that I've had in working all my life as a musician. And that has taken various forms through the years. Sometimes, some years, it looks a little more like this. Some years, I had to change it up. Sometimes, opportunities come and go, and things change. And life changes, often. So, within the midst of that, I'm going to shoot out one word to you. If you're looking at becoming a real-life working musician, and to try to make a living, and that's going to become your job or your income type of a thing. Even if it's a side hustle, as they call it these days. The one word I'm going to throw out to you to begin with is diversify. So if you come into this world and, hey, I don't want to work as a janitor, I don't want to work in fast food, I don't want to work this or that, or be outside in the sun all day, or work construction, or whatever it is. Sometimes if it's a negative entry point, you might get pretty discouraged on the positive outcome of when you start out as a working musician. So the first thing I'll say is when you decide to be a working musician and to try to make a living at that, it's not all going to be easy. It's not all going to happen overnight. But you need to, first of all, evaluate your life, evaluate your current situation, and evaluate your finances. You can't, unfortunately, do something creative without investing in yourself first. And if you're not in a position to do that financially, even if it's a small amount, then you need to work towards getting yourself in a position to be able to do that. What that looks like initially is trim the fat. And I don't mean physically, I mean your bills, your life situation, your needs, or maybe some of your wants. Hey, sell that video game console. Hey, get rid of that membership to Netflix. Hey, get rid of this expensive phone plan. You might have to cut out some stuff to get yourself into a position where you might have less to pay for than your typical American lifestyle. Now, in Europe and other places around the world, and the UK, this might be different. But I'm speaking to those who are musicians and maybe they want to get out there on the road, they want to tour, or maybe they want to network and build their songwriting career or whatever it is in the United States. And what I love about the United States is it's like having 48 countries you could go to. There are lots of opportunities and lots of land that's drivable and not that expensive compared to flights in other parts of the world, and accessible places you could go. So you need to build your life and to shift your current situation to be able to just cut out some things that aren't necessary, or lower your bills. Or maybe you got to work towards paying off the current car you have so you don't have that overhead expense. And you can take it on the road and you can do maintenance on it, and that's the only expense you'd have for the year. Or maybe you are renting an apartment by yourself or whatever, and you decide, well, I want to do this on the road. I want to go on the road. I want to invest more in my music on more of a full-time, greater scale. Maybe you get a roommate. Maybe you grab a few friends, or maybe you meet some people at work and see about a roommate situation, or something to where you lower the burden of the finances so that you can get out there and your odds are a little bit better. So that's the first thing I'll say. Also, with that, the position of your life. You might be like me and love watching YouTube guitar videos and love watching other musicians and learning and you love connecting with other musicians out there. And you might be older. You might be 30s, 40s, maybe 50s. And I'd say this starting out in music is generally not the time to do it. Now, you could start out a side hustle, and we'll get to that later. But if you're going to go all in, I'm going to make this my full-time thing, you'll need to trim the finances, lower your bills, and get rid of anything you don't need, and get cheaper things, and eat out less. Number two, you're going to need to evaluate your life and make sure that you're in a position that you can devote that much time, and you don't have, for instance, a family relying on you for a massive amount of income per week. So the best time of life to start doing this is definitely out of college, even during college age, young adult. And I even gigged as a teenager, but it was here and there, locally. So the sooner the better. And that way, you have plenty of time. If you only make a few $100 a week, you can survive. Or maybe you're in a position where you could stay in a family's basement for a while, because maybe you're gone a lot throughout the year, and it doesn't make sense for you to own a house that you're never at. Or maybe you're in a situation where you can rent out a property that you have, and that's maybe at a later season in life when you're a little bit older. We'll talk about that later with the side hustle thing. So I hope that's making sense initially. Now, when you start out, there are a lot of specific avenues, I would call it, within music that you could pursue. Now, the big word for me is diversify. What I had to learn the hard way was I can't just do one thing in music and expect to make a living. Now, this is different because I'll give you a little bit of a glimpse into my story. So back in the late 90s, I started a band with my brother and cousin, and we were called Jettison Never. And we were a trio. We worked on our music all through elementary school, middle school, grade school, and we recorded ourselves in the basement of my cousin's house. We practiced and worked hard at music every day, and our goal was to become a band, to get signed and to tour and become a band that creates its own music and is able to connect with fans on the road, because this was back in the time when they didn't have a whole lot of online opportunities. There wasn't YouTube yet. There were only CDs, and there was, of course, email. There was digital music you could buy and download and distribute through iTunes and things like that. But then Napster hit, and then LimeWire and all these free download things happened. So even back then, it wasn't that great. We have Spotify now, which can get you pays per stream. But back then, you could release music and bootleg it, as we called it, sell it out of the trunk of your car, sell it at shows, pass around CDs. You could get the word out, and quickly you could make a few $100 within a week with just people downloading your music or buying CDs or whatever. And that was sort of a way to kind of launch you into what you might do in music and get you going. You could do that through personal networking, and people would buy your product. They would buy the CDs, they would buy the recordings, or buy t-shirts and stuff like that, stickers. We would sell stuff. So we did that as teenagers. We started out that way. And my goal, I remember, was, do you remember the 90s band Hanson? I looked at them. I was able to watch them. They were three brothers. They were on TV. They got these opportunities. They had music videos on MTV. They had a single on the radio. And I looked at that as a 16-year-old and I said, that's my goal. And that was a pretty high and lofty, inaccessible goal, but somewhere in the back of my mind, I had that as a goal. And so I became very driven, and a lot of opportunities came and went. Nevertheless, we didn't really quite reach that stardom, but we decided to go on the road and take our band on the road. And our whole goal was to present our own music. And there was a culture of that back then. In the 90s, in the early 2000s, up to 2010, 12, 11, 13 even, there were venues that bands were touring all throughout the year in every area of the United States and even into Canada and stuff. And you could go and see shows at venues of bands that no one had ever heard of, underground indie bands, and people actually showed up. I mean, sometimes it was only 5 people, 10, 30, 50. Sometimes, though, if you were to get a few bands together that were networking enough and bringing their friends around and had enough of a following, if you were to get on a show with them, there'd be hundreds of people at the venue. So this was a time in which there were venues like this that people wanted to come and hear original music that no one had ever heard of. And that was something new, something that was innovative, something that was creative. And again, this is a whole other video that we could talk about because I'm very passionate about this. And that was a certain time in which there was potential in that. Now, granted, not everybody got signed to record deals. It was very exclusive, those opportunities that you could find. They were hard to find. Not everybody got songs on the radio and, all this. And there was a MySpace at this time. There were a few things that people could find your music online with, but not a whole lot. So that took quite a bit of effort to get the word out and rise above the surface. But nevertheless, that was our whole goal during that time in our life. And we spent from kind of the late 90s, around 2000, recording and writing music, performing regionally, locally, and then eventually touring all across the U.S. We would do 250 shows a year. And these were places we would sleep in a Walmart parking lot sometimes. We would camp out sometimes. These are places that we could go and play original music at, by the way. So that kind of tells you, even if they were small, junky places or gross basements in the bottom floor of a downtown building or some kind of tiny shack somewhere, they could have been any type of place, but this kind of goes to show you how many places there were where you could go and perform original music. And that's vastly different now. That, I think, is something to evaluate. What is my goal? What is my vision? How can I diversify what I do? And I'll tell you right now, you have to kind of somewhat go with the flow. I have to look at what music I am capable of performing, what my unique approach to music is, how I present myself. Do I just sound like everybody else? Am I just going to do 3 cowboy quotes? Am I going to sing real low, just like my grandpa, which could be awesome, depending on what kind of flavor he has. Or am I going to try to strive to do something unique that's unique to me? And how am I going to present that to the world? And it's going to take, how can I do that in various forms? So, point is, what I'm trying to say is, nowadays you don't have as much original venues that you can perform at with original music that you made. Things kind of died down because of the economy. And by 2010, 2011 or so, in fact, our van got destroyed by a tornado in 2011. And economically, we just couldn't really continue anymore. And most of those venues had shut down at that point and had stopped booking so many shows. And hey, you can come if you sell only this many tickets, or you've got to be able to play with these and these bands who will bring 100 people to this venue. Anyways, that's a whole other discussion for another day. The point is that you have to look at your capabilities and evaluate and be like, well, those kind of things, what does exist? What opportunities are out there? And how can I put myself and my music and the way I do it, and how can I interject that into those opportunities and into those spaces? So after that kind of economic downturn of 2008, 2009 and all that, as original music venues started to shut down more and more and more, and there were less and less of those opportunities, and with the tornado, and this is a story for maybe another time, but I had to stop and evaluate my life. Am I going to continue doing music and trying to make a living at it and find opportunities and change a little bit about what I do, or am I going to just stop and kind of move on to something else, another type of career? I chose to kind of move forward, which is probably insane for most people's position of life, but I had to evaluate, like, okay, am I able to do cover songs? I'll get specific here. So in live music, here's point number, 3 or 4. So point number 1 is you've got to evaluate your position of life. And how can I trim the bills and the finances? And am I capable of having a very low income and being able to survive? And then number 2 is diversify. Can I do more than just my own music? What can I look for that I can interject my music and my approach to music into? And number 3 is it's going to have to be, most likely, if you're going to start with live music, gigging, you're going to need to have a repertoire of cover songs. Songs that people are familiar with that aren't your own songs. And so that was a bit of a turning point for me, that I absolutely hated doing that. I hated cover bands. I hated cover songs. That was the creative artist's death. And yeah, to a certain extent, a lot of me died inside. Oh man, I don't want to sing Freebird at this thing, at this restaurant or this, festival or whatever thing outside. You have to look at, am I going to adjust what I do to kind of fit the opportunities that are out there? So where the rubber meets the road for me was, okay, what's available is opportunities where people expect cover music, not just your own music. And so I took the strategy out of, okay, how can I make a catalog of cover music that I like? At least if I like it, maybe someone else will like it too. Or, if it's familiar enough and I can stomach it and I enjoy singing the song, actually, then I'm sure someone else will enjoy it too. It's not just, okay, do Hotel California for the 100th time every week, I roll my eyes. But you may love that song. So if it's a song or a repertoire that you build up of songs that you love and you respect the artist and what they did, the way the song is, then build up a catalog of those songs. Some of them, for me, are, for instance, I love U2, and some of them are a little bit obscure, but some of them are pretty well known. But I kind of also take the mindset of whatever song it is. It could have been a pop radio hit, like an old school classic song. Those tend to be the songs I love, or it could be something modern, like a Ed Sheeran song or something like that you like. You actually happen to like. Maybe you don't like all the material, but you like some of it. So take some of those songs, pick the songs that you enjoy, that will line up kind of with some well-known songs, and then make them your own. Make them different. Change the key. Change the key to fit your vocal. If you can do it in the original key, great. Do it as good or better than the artist. And so that's the mindset shift that I had to take. You know, I love classic rock. I love kind of more of the old school sound. I'm a guitar player. So I picked a lot of those songs. And then my favorite bands are like U2 and Coldplay. So being a little familiar with those types of songs that weren't exactly the most popular cover songs, but they were familiar enough, I would make those more guitar heavy songs. And people would be like, oh, I love the way that you do this cover. It's so unique. It's different. So that's what I would say is kind of your entryway into starting to think about live music and making a living. So we're going to talk about all this type of stuff in a series of videos, and I'll give you a lot of my journey, and most of my journey is in gigging for a living, is presenting live music for a living. That's been most of my career. Now, we'll explore other avenues of working in music and trying to be a working musician and make a living at music. But we'll probably we'll start out with gigging and all the areas and all the ways you can approach it to be able to make a living. Because in my opinion, this is my opinion, and I guess it's a YouTube hot take and you can comment and whatever. Gigging is still the most viable, although there is overhead expense and stuff can go wrong, of course, and there's a lot of unpredictable factors in the midst of it week to week. However, it's still the most viable income in music, in my opinion. People are still wanting to hear live music. Despite all this digital age, despite all of the video content and social media out there, I'm going to make a case for the viability of live music. Despite there being like AI videos that you can just program and push a button and they can create music, and they can even create a music video of the music they created. And like, those look like real people in the video. Cool. That tickles my fancy and like makes my ear excited. There is definitely content out there being created right now in a digital way that some of it is great, some of it's creative, of course. People are creating it. But then some of it is just becoming bulk content. I remember bulk content when I was in school, when computers first came around, and I'm pretty ancient then, right? The bulk content that you would get on a computer was called clip art. So digital content is becoming clip art. We're reverting back to that at this point. Anyways, this is a hot take. But point is, I think live music as an avenue for someone who wants to make a living in music is still probably the best avenue. People are still interested. They still love hearing live music, even if they're not paying 100% attention to you. Even if it's not your own original songs, you can present your music, your talent, and you can use that to bring joy into people's lives in the flesh, in person, in the presence of people. I think that still holds the most value in music. And this is my opinion, but I believe that's where music's meant to be presented and heard, is in person. So I think all the more of those opportunities, although they won't look the same, although they'll be different from year to year, from week to week, decade to decade, people's tastes will change a little here and there and whatever. But still, I think live music presents the human soul and the human essence of sound through the soul of a person to person. I still think that's the best opportunity out there. So we're going to talk more about that in detail in videos to come and explain in various forms on how I make it, or what I've done to try different things and diversify live music gigging. And then we'll also talk about other avenues of music that aren't just a live show that you can also get into to diversify working in music. I hope this video has been somewhat encouraging or helpful. I know I'm a bit of a rambler, but I think I'll get better and better as time goes along and I explain more and more. But would love your questions and comments. Maybe you have some comments like, how do you have a family and are a working musician and all this stuff? Like this, feel free to interject any questions or comments. I'm not saying I have any right answers. I'm just going to explain what's happened to me and the approach I take and what I chose to do and how I chose to diversify myself and kind of rise to the occasion pretty much every week. And maybe you can take some of that and apply it to your journey in working in music. And it's not going to look the same. You're not going to sound the same. You're going to sound like you. And so take yourself, diversify, and apply the talent and all that you have to the opportunities that are available. That'd be my 2 cents. Please comment and subscribe and throw in your questions. Might do some live streams and stuff as well. I would say at the end of the day, though, regardless of what you choose to do, even if it's a career not in music, in life, things happen. Things are out of your control. And I think at the end of the day for me, it wasn't all this stuff that I did to make working in music a possibility, to make a living in music a possibility. It was also the combination of that and supportive people in my life, my family, my wife. You can't do nothing unless your wife kind of gives a little stamp of approval, even if she doesn't love the idea. Other people in my life that were friends, ministers, and churches, organizations, and on and on and on. People said, I believe in what he's doing. I'm going to support him. I'm going to give, or I'm going to help him out. Hey, this thing broke on the road. Here's a new one. I'll give a quick example of this. I wouldn't be anywhere if it wasn't for people in my life. I'm telling you, I can spend all day talking about examples. I want to give a shout out to a friend of mine. He goes by the artist name Jet Black. And he recently acquired a venue in Chattanooga called the Wood Shop. And mostly they do blues and stuff. They have a blues night. They do folky Americana. And it's a neighborhood bar, restaurant, listening room. So you can go in there in downtown Chattanooga and listen to bands or listen to artists. It's fantastic. You should check it out. You should totally come for a visit in Chattanooga. And I want to give a shout out to Jet Black. So we were on the road once and coming back from South Dakota and Iowa, my whole tour that I do up there. And I was pulling a trailer this time, and the trailer tire blew in southern Illinois, almost to Kentucky. And we just were, we didn't have a spare, and we had to pull over. And it was like, well, what am I going to do? Well, there's a few, we can unhitch it, we can go try to find a Walmart, we can go try to find one somewhere, yada, 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 thinking about all this stuff. Lo and behold, right behind me, this RV pulls up that was following us. And a tall man with a deep voice gets out, and he has a trailer tire in his hand. He has a spare one. And he brings it to me and says, here, you can use this, you can have it. And lo and behold, it was Jet Black, coming back from a tour as well to Nashville. And I was like, well, wait a minute. Are you sure? Here, take some money. But he was like, no, man, just good luck with everything. And then he jumped in the RV and drove off. And I got his information. I followed him online. But what are the odds? I would say if it wasn't for people in my life, I would be nowhere. That's definitely the truth. So we can talk more about that as well in the future. Don't make enemies. Don't burn bridges. Don't try to think you can do everything on your own. Because at the end of the day, you can't. And I'll say the final thing, most of all, is I haven't done everything myself on my own power. I would be nothing without people in my life. But the third thing and final thing is without God, I would absolutely be nowhere. I would absolutely be done a long time ago. We can definitely talk more about that later, but without God's power and His connection and His Holy Spirit and working literal miracles on week to week in my journey, I would be nowhere. I would say your final thing is to get a prayer life and seek God and what He wants you to do. And maybe He'll give you a vision. Maybe He'll give you glimpses. Maybe He'll bring things to mind. Maybe He will bring people that you can connect with that will start you on your journey. Whatever it is, without God's power, there's absolutely no way of making it. And that applies to, I believe, any area of life, of your career, your job, whatever you have. Without God's power, we're very limited. And things happen, things change. It doesn't matter what kind of job or career it is. You could lose your job tomorrow. A factory or something could shut down. They could cut your position anywhere. So I would say at the end of the day, wherever you're at in life, whatever you choose to do, seek God. Seek the Lord. Not just as a handout, but as a relationship. So I'll leave it with this. Jesus loves you. He created you to do some cool things. He created you unique. You're not just another auto-tuned AI machine, consumer creative out there. You are uniquely you. And God created you in that way. So seek Him for help, guidance, and direction. And He loves you. Regardless of what you choose to do, know that He gave His life for you so that you could live eternally forever with Him. Well, that's about all I got to say to start out. I could, I guess, ramble on for a long time, but we'll hopefully break up more of these videos and talks into something that is a little more digestible in the future. But thanks for hanging out. Thanks for tuning in. And yeah, if you have any questions or comments, let me know. Hope to see you on the road. Hope to meet you in person. And hope to also pray for you in your journey. Let me know how I can pray for you. And hope this is encouragement to you today. And good luck out there as you pursue these.